Good evening.
Chief.
So I was told I had 7 minutes.
It's down to
Now it's
five.
down to 6.
10, 15 minutes.
Now it's 3.
But it's very hot in here tonight too.
It is warm.
You know,
Yeah, of course, having a hot flash.
and being a firefighter, going through the cuts in the past, and living through it, and working with 6 firefighters on duty almost every day. I've been in fires by myself, in basement fires, because we didn't have enough staff. A truck was on another call. We made it to a house fire on Sunrise. It's completely unacceptable, and I hope to God we don't go back there. I feel bad for everyone in this room having to deal with this and go through it. As a select board, town administrator, everyone in here, residents. I have kids in the school. I live in town, and I'm so disappointed that we're here again. Really, I thought we were past it, and I hope we can get through it. I hope right decisions are made and we can move forward. But since I took over in 2016 as the chief, back then there was a public outcry about our staffing, and when I started in 16, they just hired 2 firefighters. I hired the second 2, and then I pushed for a FEMA Safer grant, which got approved in 18, that got our minimum staffing to 8 a shift, our maximum at 10. So we'd never run below 8. All our policies we didn't have any policies back then. I've been working hard to push policies. We run a specific way now. So we sent 2 companies on car accidents, 3 companies on calls for fires, medicals are 1 company. It's been designed this way, and I don't know how to go back. It'll be devastating. So I just want to throw that out there. I know it's going to be awful for everyone if we have to go through it. But I do want to thank all the firefighters, men and women at the fire department, for all their hard work in this past year, including my secretary Ann. It's same thing. We have forced overtimes when we don't have enough. Like, people are on vacation, people are in military deployments. No one wants to come in and work Sunday. Guess what? You're not going home, and you're staying there for 24 more hours, and it's unpopular. And I do appreciate all their hard work and effort and getting the job done and protecting the town. So I hope we don't go backwards. It will kill morale. It did in the past, and I hope we're past it. But either way, I just want to bring that up. But to start, so these are our incidents for 23 and 24. We had about a 10% increase in calls. These are all emergency calls. This doesn't include fire prevention, any other non-emergency calls we do. As you can see, the fire and explosions, that's a 100 series. 200 series are the overpressure ruptures. That increase is basically, I was working with the state on reclassifying how our calls are coded, and a lot of cooking fires don't actually catch fire, but there's charring, and that's one of the 200 series codes. So some of the data does change based on educating the department and going through the proper way of documenting. So, but the increases are the increases. The rescue calls and the medical aids, car accidents, that's the majority of our work and every fire department in the country. Hazardous conditions, hazardous materials calls, elevator issues, electrical issues, your service calls, good intent, false alarms, severe weather, and special types complaints. Next slide, please, George. This is the breakdown of the calls we did per company, and this was an odd year because we were fortunate to get 2 new fire trucks that were delivered this year. They took many years to come in, but it changed the numbers of what each company did. So engine 1 came in May of 24, and it shows it did 1394. Engine 2, 984. That's a reserve engine now. Engine 3 is a reserve engine. Engine 4 came in February, but we were only running it for a while during the day and then parking it in the back of the station at night, so it did less calls. We were rotating companies. The ladder truck did the least amount of calls at 811, and it has had a lot of electrical problems this year. It's been out of service more than I would ever anticipate, unfortunately. Engine 6 was when we were borrowing apparatus, and then car 2 is the captain, who's the incident commander. And then other is, myself, prevention guys if they're out and about, they take in a call, and then mutual aid is companies coming into Stoneham. Next slide. Oh, by the way, that picture, that's a lightning strike on Fellsview Terrace, and it caught a pile of debris in someone's backyard and really took off in a rainstorm. We had a significant fire in their yard, believe it or not. Next slide, please. This is a slide that just shows, it's a couple years old, but it shows the breakdown of our calls versus Massachusetts. And as you can see, our percentages of calls are equivalent to Massachusetts. So we have this basically same percentage of fires, medicals, false calls, etc. Next slide. This was Group 4 on March 5th. We had a second alarm fire at Lennon Road. And that's, you can tell by the smoke, they're getting water on the fire. It turned to a whitish color. And they're actually venting the roof there to get the heat out. And you can see it like pluming up. Next slide. So on November 14th, Group 1 was on duty. And I know they're watching, so I do want to throw some props to them. They're on duty right now. This was quite a shift. They had three fires that one shift within 15 hours. This apartment building, the call came in at 2:13 that they received a fire alarm and a call reporting a kitchen fire. At 2:15, so in about a minute and a half or so, the last company departed the station, and then dispatch notified the shift commander that they had a person trapped on the third floor unit. I arrived when I heard that. I was out on the road. I came into the rear parking lot, and Captain Eastman pulled up to the front. From the rear, there was a little bit of smoke coming out, but there was a crowd of people looking up. So I went over there, and there was a victim hanging out the window. Captain Eastman was on the front. He had a little bit of smoke coming up. He took over basically, ordering the crews on what to do. And I had the ladder come into that side and throw the ladder, and the gentleman was able to climb down the ladder on his own without really any assistance from us. Then they moved the ladder to that position to vent the roof. So engine 1 reported heavy smoke on the third floor at 2:18. At 2:17, we called EMS to the Alpha side. We had a burn victim from the unit. At 2:19, I found out from the victim that there was no one else in the unit, and I was putting information to relay to the crews that were inside. At 2:19 and 18 seconds, the ambulance was on scene, and at 2:21, the occupant from Unit 12 had been rescued. So that was 6 minutes from when we left the fire station to rescuing a person out of this building over a ladder, which I had to bring it up because it was just tremendous work. They did a really, really remarkable job. I'm proud of them. I'm proud of the work they've done. This would be much different at 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m. And it is what it is. And I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of some of the accomplishments that we've made this year. And this was a crazy shift. In between these two fires, they had a fire at 10:30 that night on Franklin Street, which was mostly extinguished by the occupant. They basically, it was a small fire, but it caught the blinds and the floorboard. The crews basically put out the rest of the fire with the fire extinguisher. At 5:30 in the morning, they responded to this attic fire, fully involved. The family's power went out, and I believe someone had just gotten home and realized it, so luckily they were awake. Yeah, it was 23 degrees, it was freezing, slippery, and this was the third fire that tore. So, next slide. And then a couple weeks ago, we had another 2-alarm fire on Tamarack Terrace, which unfortunately was right before Christmas, and it was devastating to the family. Next slide. So this is the same request that I've been making for several years. Request to replace the deputy chief position that was cut in 2004. And I'm also, again, requesting to promote 4 firefighters to lieutenant. Also, I've been applying for the FEMA Safer Grant every year for the last, I think 3 years. We've been unsuccessful. The grant's very competitive. I intend to put in for it again. It's 100% funding of salary and benefits. if approved. And, it would be for 4 more firefighters. Our shift average keeps going down. We, run an 8.27 firefighters per shift. It was 8.5 last year and 8.6 the year before. And the reason is, military deployments, firefighters with more time on the job get more vacation as they become more senior, and it impacts the staffing and the budget. So 8 is our minimum out the door, and we allow 2 firefighters to be out at once, and then we call for an overtime. So that means every time that we were running 8 almost every day this year. When we, I'll get into this later, but the last staff, as I mentioned earlier, the last staffing increases were doing 2016, and it was based on public outcry to the select board, and then again in 2018 with assistance from the FEMA grant. This additional staffing has provided us the ability to achieve multiple simultaneous fireground operations, such as rescue while conducting extinguishment. When we run too short, the decision has to be made by the officer in charge. Do we put out the fire, or do we do a search and rescue? And that's a horrible decision to have to make. So you should be able to put the fire out and go get a victim. However, our current minimum staffing level is still very lean. It doesn't leave us much room for error. Just like you could hire a carpenter, or you could have a doctor that's not a good doctor, or not as proficient as someone else, or experienced, or whatever it may be. Like, not all firefighters can drive the ladder truck. Not all firefighters, they all have their strong points and some weak points. So it is what it is. It's the reality of life. So it doesn't leave us much room for mistakes, and sometimes mistakes do happen. Can you go back? I didn't catch the last. Thank you. We don't meet the standards we don't have proper company supervision. So we basically run 2 companies without an officer. So there's a lieutenant on engine 1, and then the captain goes in the car with engine 4. So he's not in the apparatus, but he's going with them on medicals. So I would love to add more lieutenants at some point.
Matt, can I interrupt you?
Yes,
for
of
a
course.
second? What is the standard statewide, nationwide? What is the standard for a shift?
It's NFPA 1710. There's a call and career, and I believe it's 16, which, and that's also based on the community's ability to afford it. So obviously that is out of Stoneham's reach, but if we could get closer to it, call mutual aid immediately on a working fire, we would be at that level. And that's for a single family home with no basement. That's not for all these apartment buildings in Stoneham. That you need way more help. And if you watch the news, like, Boston will send 100 guys to a fire, like nothing. And fires aren't any hotter in Boston than in Stoneham. They're just as dangerous. They're just more dense, and it's obviously a major urban city. We are not. But
So the ideal shift nationwide is 16. We run 8.
we run down to 8.
We run down to 8. Our goal is 10.
We should, in my opinion, we should never run below 10. And that would be 3 on each company with the lieutenant and the captain in the car. That would be optimum. So that's what Wakefield does. That's what Melrose does. That's what Winchester does. That's what most communities around here do. We just never have.
And what does that mean? So when a call comes in, what does that mean? So these folks will go off they'll respond to a fire.
Mm-hmm.
Who's covering if there's something else in town?
It's all predetermined by a run card. So if a call comes in for fire, they leave the station, they get there. Yes, it's a fire. We call it a working fire. That means they're pulling hose, going in to fight the fire. That automatically brings Winchester to our fire, Wakefield and Reading to cover the station. We go to a second alarm. Wakefield and Reading go to the fire with Woburn's tower ladder, and then Malden, Medford, and Saugus cover.
Okay, so what I get the feeling that for people that are meeting sort of that, and I understand we are nowhere near, and
Sure.
we're never going to be able to hit a level of 16, but that kind of level really allows you to send a full set of 3 trucks with, say, 10 people on it, and probably still have coverage with your own people in town. and not bring in as much mutual aid to cover your own town?
No,
Or you
there's
still-
jobs that
Or we're just not doing.
we're
just
not
jobs
doing,
we're not
correct.
doing on
Yep.
the. Oh,
Like, so like, at that fire when we rescued the guy over the ladder, there should have been someone, like, there should have been an officer and a firefighter going up to get him, and then someone staying at the turntable to rescue him. That guy was able to walk out. If we had to carry someone out, there's no one at the turntable to operate the ladder. Huge safety problem. It's completely unacceptable to run 2 firefighters on companies. That's just the way it is. So that's what, I would love to get away from doing that, so. But our staffing is much better than it was. You know, we've made, you know, great strides in the last few years to get us where we're at, but we're still not even where we should be.
So let's touch on that real quick.
So here's a staffing comparison from other communities. So North Reading,
Smaller.
they're a small community, 15,000 residents. They run 22 firefighters and 5 paid call. Stoneham has 43 total. Wilmington's the next closest with 48. Winchester's 51. Reading's 51. Melrose is 51. Danvers 52. Wakefield 55. Saugus 59. And Watertown 88. So it just shows you, every one of them has an assistant chief or deputy chief. Melrose just negotiated it in 24. I don't know when they're adding it. We don't have one. Then there's also the deputy chief, that's a shift commander. Only Watertown has that. That's something that Stoneham wouldn't ever need. We use a captain. We have enough captains. And then if you look at the lieutenants, Stoneham has 5, Wilmington 6, and I believe Winchester's 9, 8, 13, 12, 11. So our organizational structure is not correct either. So, next slide. And then as far as budget comparisons, we're a little bit more than North Reading, and we're $1 million below the next town that compares to us. And we're, just from Wakefield, we're, what, $2 million less than Wakefield? So it's not even, we're not even close to them. This is just a staffing flow chart which shows our minimum of how we do run. And I put under engine 4, it shows captain in the car. So they run not in that truck, they go with it. Just to be a supervisor on medical aids. So they're running, we split calls. So the lieutenant goes on one call in engine 1, then the captain with engine 4, and they keep rotating. The ladder goes with them on car accidents, elevator entrapments, and alarm calls. They all go on fire alarms. This to the right is what I would say would be optimum for Stoneham. That should be our goal someday, which would be the captain as a shift commander, each company with 3 minimum of a lieutenant and 2 firefighters, and that's what Wakefield does. Like I said, all these other towns.
And you have to multiply, because how many shifts do you have?
There's 4 shifts.
So there's 4 shifts, so you take the graph and you have to multiply it by 4 to understand the total staffing structure that he's trying to.
The other option, and it's what Gloucester did, was they eliminated a shift and created more hours, but used that to increase the staffing. And I don't know, that's obviously a negotiating thing with the union, but that is something that has happened in this vicinity, and they're the only community that I know that did it, but I think it's worked well for them. Next slide.
I'll just say, I would want to know what would it cost to run a real department with
Don't call it
proper.
a real.
Oh, sorry, I actually shouldn't call it that. That's not what I meant.
No offense taken.
No, that's not what I, but I really, I don't mean to be offensive with that.
Working right now,
I mean
they heard
a ideal, really, a department that is properly staffed from both a structure and a level perspective. You guys do the real work with an ridiculous level of staffing.
This is probably your answer.
So
right.
I want to, I want to.
That's your answer right there.
Look at the
If
population.
that's what
in
we
North Reading.
need, yes, they're tiny. But we saw that in the police numbers too. I mean, the police numbers, their staff levels were also really, really small on the police side as well. But you know, if we need an operating budget that's higher to make the fire department have proper funding levels and staffing levels, then that's something that should be presented as we talk about what the proper budget is for the fire department. And that's what we can tell people. Like, you will have a response to your house when your house is on fire that will have 10 people, and all of them will have the proper management in place, and there'll be people there that can, effectively rescue you and your family.
Well, there's, the company officers in charge of the crew. They're in charge of taking orders, giving orders, making sure that the job is performed. So if the pump operator is having a hard time with the pump, the lieutenant's gonna run out and be like, hey, do this. It's teamwork. That's where I said we don't have room for error, with the way we run. And there should be supervision. They're $1 million trucks and there's no boss on it. Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's set up that way for a reason, and for whatever, Stoneham's been this way since probably the 1960s. We've never changed. So you talk about the inflation that's impacting the town as it's impacting families and everyone else. Like, the cost of engine 1, which I believe we ordered in 2021, was $836,000. Engine 4 we gratefully got from APA funds. We got it for $865,000. Both of those engines would be $1.2 million today in a 4-year delivery time.
4 years.
Mhm. 4 years to build that.
Wow.
So it took I think it took 3 years to get engine 1, and then fortunately engine 4 was a canceled order that we were able to grab. And chief from another community down south called me and couldn't believe we got engine 4 for that price. They were looking at buying. There was 2 of them built identical. They were looking to buy that one, and they were going to pay much more. So, and as far as grants in 2024, Lieutenant Rourke, who's our fire prevention lieutenant, he was successful at getting the FEMA AFG grant, which is what we used a few years ago to get the radios. He was able to get 5 automated chest compression devices. They're called Lucas devices. So now we have them on every fire truck and on every ambulance in Stoneham. And what they do is they do CPR, chest compressions. When if you're trying to carry someone on a backboard from the 3rd floor down, it's really tough to do adequate chest compressions. This machine will do it for you. To the point where long-term CPR in the hospitals, they will call for like Melrose's ambulance to bring their Lucas device to keep the person,
Wow.
with adequate chest compressions. But they successfully restored a patient's pulse already. I know we've used them twice, but we had one. I don't know the patient's final outcome, but it did bring back a pulse. For other grants, we got the DFS equipment grant where we purchased nozzles, appliances, hoses. The students safe grant and senior safe, we get that. That's a every year grant, $8,100. The Meyer equipment grant we got and split with Public Works and the police department, and basically got traffic safety devices, cones, signage. The MEMA EMPG grant pays for one of our data systems, and the Lieutenant Rook got the Dennis Leary firefighters grant. He bought a training prop that teaches forcible entry. So that was a $9,000 grant. And on July 1st, we switched to Armstrong Ambulance, and it did change the model of service. We had 2 ALS, previously we had 1 ALS ambulance, 1 BLS ambulance. The calls would come in, and it took time for the dispatch to decide which ambulance to send. We switched to Armstrong, we went with the PB model, so now every ambulance has a paramedic and a basic. So if you see 2 ambulances going on a call, it's probably to bring the medic to that call, to get 2 medics. But they have an increased amount of mid-level managers and supervisors available to Stoneham. That made for faster dispatch times, and they get backup ambulances into Stoneham seamlessly, quite often. A2 goes out, and I hear A3's in Stoneham. I think they have a base in Woburn, and it's been a fantastic fit for Stoneham. There's been an improved working relationship with the ambulance and our public safety, police, dispatchers, fire. And I do want to thank the police, Chief O'Connor, the dispatchers, the firefighters, April, Lanny, and procurement, and Dennis for his support in going through this process. And it's been so far, I don't think I've gotten one complaint. They've been top notch, and I'm very, very grateful to have them. Next slide.
Uh-oh.
Delete. That's it. Thank you. That's That was when engine 3 got delivered. I asked them to stop in a town in Ohio who owned the steamer that was from Stoneham. So there's a collector that owns that. It's an 1891 steamer. So they pulled engine. This was a few years back, but I thought it was just kind of a cool slide to put up with the thank you. But
That's great.
yeah, so
If they ever want to donate it back to Stoneham. All right, I'm gonna start. It's the same thing.
it's the same.
It's
Yep.
the same thing.
Yep.
We've been talking about this for years.
Mhm.
To increase the operating budgets for these departments, something has to be done. We are taking those steps. We're trying to be proactive. We're trying to give everybody every piece of information that they can, and I'm so glad that you three are here tonight. I guess the same thing, the count would be, you need to get up to like 50 to be comfortable.
Yeah, that'd be phenomenal to get to what the other communities run.
And the organizational piece of it, you know, I know these are contract negotiations and all that stuff, and that costs money. But can you really put a price on safety?
One thing I want to mention is, obviously we're glad to bring in mutual aid, but we also provide it. And right now we'll send engine 1 out of town with the lieutenant, 2 firefighters. When we run short, we used to send half our crew out of town and depend on callback to come in and man the reserve engine. And callback isn't what it used to be. Guys used to drop what they were doing and come in. It just doesn't happen. So we don't always get coverage anymore. And that's part of the reason why it'd be great to have a full shift because most communities, their availability for mutual aid is 1/3 of your department. So Boston can send 1/3, Medford will send an engine and a ladder if you need it. So we send an engine, Reading sends an engine, everyone around here sends 1/3. When you're cutting below 3 companies, you're sending half your department. And then if you're not getting people to come in off duty, that's what you got. So,
Yeah, I think, I personally needed 911 a few weeks back. And when I say they were at my door and helping me within 2 minutes, they were at my door within 2 minutes. My daughter was still on the phone, and she's like, "Mom, they're coming down the street." I don't want to get emotional about it, but very grateful that
it's something people
We
don't
had-
think they need, and a lot of people think, I don't need the fire department.
Yeah.
It happens. Things happen. Things go wrong, and that's why we're here, and it's our job. And
what I would ask for you, both chiefs and Brett, I know Brett's going to be the hard one to get through, but maybe we need to show a graph of what the departments could look like and what that cost would be when we do this override presentation. So I don't mean to put more work
No.
on you, Erin, but it would be nice to just have that one graphic to let people know, like, this is where we're at, this is what we need, and you get to make that decision. We're not making this decision about your money. We're just helping you decide if you want to do it or not. I digress, because that's part of the override conversation. But I think it would be important to show, these graphs are nice, but really, I want to know what the bottom line is and what you actually need. So, anybody else?
I
mean,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think it's also, as I just said, with the police, right? What are the other things that that we take for granted, chief, that, you would want to be able to do? I know for a while there, there was that whole issue with the radios, right? And you kept trying to get the grant for that, and we were like, can't we just get that money, right? Are there other things like that, besides just the bodies, that would really help make our fire department work even more? better.
I mean, with that opera money was tremendous. We were able to get a new pump, equipment.
I mean, that's the truck we replaced up there.
I mean, it's no secret the station is old.
Well, I was gonna
It's
say,
110
that's a
years
big
old.
one,
That's
right?
something that needs to be in the plans, on the radar of what to do, and,
Yep.
you know, I don't know when to do it. You know, it was, I think Burlington was around 8 million in 16, 17, and I wanna say it's over 20 million today to do a substation. So it's, you know, I don't know. But then we can't, we're limited to what ladder trucks we can even fit in that building, so when we replace our ladder truck, we have to stick with the same vendor, or we can't fit it in the building, so. So it's just, we're kicking the can down the road. It's been going on, this has been going on, in 1995, the ladder truck didn't fit. And then, here we are today, you know, the same, I don't know.
Well, you said earlier that, you know, things haven't changed since the sixties.
As far as I think they added fire prevention officers and that's it. There's been no other,
Yeah.
no reorganization. The deputy was probably, it was probably 2000, the deputy chief, they made a deputy chief position, and then in '04, he retired, and we lost that position to attrition. We still don't have it, you know, when we have 2 fire prevention officers, one works Monday through Thursday, one works Tuesday through Friday. If one takes vacation on Monday or Friday, there's no one in fire prevention. I'm the only one there on day staff. There's no one else. It's a shift and me. So when people come into the door, you know, I need my plans, I need this, I need that. I'm stopping what I'm doing and going out, you know. Ann's awesome, but she's not answering technical questions. So we don't have a deputy. We need one. I'm the only non-union member in that entire department. So it's
Things are
it's archaic to say the least. So
Things are different. We live differently now,
Mhm.
you know.
Yep.
Everything's
just
different.
no, there's no succession planning. There's nothing. When I retire in a few years, who's gonna take the spot? You know, like it's not like they can walk in and be chief. It'd be nice to have them work with me to learn everything. And
Well, I think it's like what Chief O'Connor said, you know, like trying to be creative, like getting a bike unit or getting a mounted unit would be nice. But to keep our staff, to let them grow
Yeah.
and move up the ladder, these are the things that we need.
And that's huge because there's not a lot of room for advancement, and people they do leave, and you know, it'd be nice to. There's so many people. I think we have 8 people on the list for lieutenant. Maybe there'll be one job, you know, possibly. Just it doesn't happen. You could go your whole career and never get the opportunity. So, and then the firefighters are almost working like lieutenants. They're right in the front seat. They're, you know, making decisions, and they're not. They're not
doing
trained to
more
do
with
it. They're
less.
not. Yeah, they're not officer certified. They're not.
Yeah.
They don't. It's not their job to call the shots. They're supposed to be you know, doing the work and running the pumps and throwing the ladders and putting the fire out, not responsible for radio communications and deciding where to go and what to do. But they do it, and they do a great job at it. But it's just not. It's not how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
But
But
Yeah.
thank you for
No,
making
thank-
it
thank you.
work the way that you do, all 3 departments.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can't even stress that enough.
yeah, we definitely get it
Thank you
done.
for bending and flexing,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I was just gonna say the same thing. Thanks for even the workers, even your guys there too, knowing that they're short-staffed every day going to work. Like Chief O'Connor and Brett's been short forever too, which is, I gotta ask you, when the lieutenant, does he become the OIC, like automatically?
Yeah, it's an
Like, who
instant
makes
command
that?
system. So if
Okay.
the captain's on another call, the lieutenant is automatically in charge.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Is there any differential when it comes to that, or is that just part of, they know?
That's just on calls.
They just know, okay.
Yeah, there's no pay differential.
All right. No, that's, all those guys knowing what they're walking into every day, I think
Yeah,
that's,
and-
that's good.
The
to
guys
keep
that
it
have been
around.
there, they're grateful that we're better than we were. You know, the guys that remember what it was like. So They love, having additional, when we do have three companies, it's nice to know that they're gonna lay the hydrant, we're gonna do the search, and they're gonna put the fire out. Before that, it was chaos. We were trying to do, multiple tasks with not enough people.
So when you cover another town, you send half a shift, does another town come in to cover two as well?
Yeah,
So you're not rolling, you're rolling the dice anyway, but those guys aren't familiar working with each other?
yeah, it's
But
the same,
thing?
yeah, it's the same thing.
Okay.
Mhm. So most communities, like, if we'll cover another community, there'll be another town with us. Well, there'll be a ladder and two engines typically. So.
You'll see it around if you actually look for it. You'll drive around and you'll see a fire truck parked someplace completely randomly under a highway, and they're covering the other town. They're coming to the town borders, or they're coming to the town, so.
I'm gonna stop after this, but I did have the opportunity to have dinner at the firehouse a while ago, and it was a rare night that they had 10. Every single firefighter loves their job, loves this town, whether they live in it or not. They are dedicated to this town, and the same with the police. I work there, the same with DPW. They are your neighbors, they are residents, and if they don't live here, they really care about their job and their profession. So, I'm not tooting anybody's horn, I'm just saying that people are dedicated, and we need to retain those people.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm off my soapbox. Anybody else? Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Chief.